All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about the Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 economy, namely in Phase 2, because a lot of the things that they want to introduce in Phase 2, they haven't done so yet. And I have my reasoning for why that hasn't happened yet. I think they're working on some server stuff. I think a lot of things that they want to introduce are being held back due to some of the performance they're having with their dynamic server meshing. And so we're kind of in a waiting period. And some people are really wondering if we're providing any input for testers. Are we doing anything in Phase 2 that we weren't doing in Phase 1? And I'm of the belief that Alpha 2, Phase 2 that we're in right now, we are testing the economy pretty heavily just by progressing, just by existing in the world that already exists. We're giving a lot of valuable data in the econ department. You see, I'm a nerd, guys. I like numbers. I studied economics in college. I went on to be a professional poker player for over a decade, and one of my favorite hobbies is to look at advanced stats and analytics in basketball and football. I like numbers. I like looking at these things. I like looking at data. I can't help myself, okay? I'm admitting this to you guys. I have a problem. But the thing is I'm not saying I'm an expert on econ. I mean, I studied a long time ago, like I said, but I know enough to know what they could be doing with the information that they have. And I wanted to talk to you guys about that in today's video. And so wanted to provide a couple of examples. We're not going to go through every single econ thing in this video for a few reasons. Number one, that would be an hour-plus long video going through every single economic thing that they currently have in Alpha 2. Number two, it probably wouldn't be super exciting for the vast majority of you guys. So we're going to do a trial run here. We're going to do a trial run. We're going to do a smaller video isolated on one specific part of the economy. And if you guys like this video, let me know in the comment section and we will dive even deeper into econ numbers and nerdiness. And I will, feed my need for numbers. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Before we dive into Alpha 2 though, we need to talk about other games in the past. And I wanted to talk to you guys about my experience in other MMORPGs. The most recent ones that I've played before Ashes of Creation was New World and The Elder Scrolls Online. And both of their economies were not very good. You don't need to have a good economy to make a good game. I'm not saying anything like that. It's really hard to make a good economy for a variety of reasons. It takes a lot of testing. It takes a lot of tweaking. It takes people knowing what they're looking at data-wise in order to make a good economy. And so how do you get by that as an MMORPG? Well, what the Elder Scrolls Online did is, as you would level up, when you would level up from level 10 to level 20 to level 30, you would encounter new materials, and those new materials could make new gear. And basically, once you got to level 10, all your stuff before that would become obsolete. Once you got to level 20, all your level 10 stuff would become obsolete, and so on and so forth. And so what you would end up having happen is all these resources at a lower level, when you got to max level, became absolutely useless. There was no point for it to exist. It still existed out in the world, of course, but it didn't really have a functional use for you. It was there just to be there. It was part of the progression tool. And what a lot of MMORPGs do with this in this way is some of them have a way to deconstruct a bunch of the lower level materials to turn it into higher level valuable stuff. What the Elder Scrolls Online did was they had a craft bag. And their craft bag was basically like a Harry Potter style bag where you open it up and it has an infinite bottom. And basically, if you collected stuff that you didn't want to have, if you had this craft bag, it would just drop into this abyss and you would never have to worry about deconstructing it, tearing it down, vendoring it. Honestly, a lot of their stuff was just, it was an annoyance to collect all this stuff that had no use. And this became a pay for convenience thing that they charged $15 a month to have. And so my craft bag was full of hundreds of thousands of flowers, which were mostly useful, and a bunch of other lower level materials that I never used in the years that I played. New World's economy wasn't very good also. And with having this style system, you end up creating this situation to where when your game gets older and it advances, a lot of your earlier content gets phased out. It gets phased out because all the high-end players don't have a use for those materials. They're playing at the high-end level areas. And you have games like Guild Wars 2 and World of Warcraft that have just areas of their MMORPG that are uninhabited. And so these MMORPGs then have to adjust for this by making a catch-up system, by making their leveling system faster so that players can get to the end game, to get to the massively multiplayer part of the online community that is part of their game, because that's where all the players are. There's nothing in the beginner loops, and so when new players coming into the game later on come to play, they encounter these issues. They encounter these situations to where there's nobody to play with, and so the game wants to keep those players. They allow them to just advance to endgame. And so this has been the time-honored tradition for MMORPGs, most of them that I know of, for the last 10 to 20 years. Obviously, there are some exceptions, and if you guys want to tell me the exceptions that you have played, you can let me know in the comment section below, but that's where a lot of MMORPGs sit. Ashes of Creation's not trying to do that. They're not trying to have a different DLCs played off. They want to have a living, breathing world where everybody can have input in that world. And so level 25s, level 50s, eventually when the game goes live, will be mingling around with level 1s and level 2s. There will be no real, like there's starter zones, but when people get out to the nodes, they'll be engaging in the world just like high-end level characters will be doing. And so that creates a unique situation with what do you do with all these damn resources, right? Ashes of Creation has lower level resources. They have lower level trees. They have higher level trees. And these trees become valuable as different stations come online. And if you would think that just like other MMORPGs, once the higher level stuff comes online, that means the lower level stuff becomes obsolete, correct? So what are you going to do with all these lower level trees in these areas? Like lower level people can farm them, but what use do they have? And this is the interesting part about the current economy and what I think a big portion of our testing currently is. We need to have resource sinks for all these different lower level resources that come online. And a couple of them I wanted to show you guys is the caravan system. Now, on Vyra, where I'm at, we recently got journeyman level carpentry like 2-3 weeks ago. It was 2-3 weeks ago now, and that means braidwood can be farmed, which is a high level 20 type of wood, which in any other game, that would mean the lower level stuff, the wood, the weeping willow, the ash, the oak, that would mean it would become obsolete, and only the higher level stuff really matters. But that's not the case in Ashes of Creation. If we go to the caravans and we look at caravan wheels for braidwood, you see that common caravan wheels provide 73 to 79 general speed rating. Obviously, you have your road speed rating when you're on your road, you have your water speed rating when you're on the water, and turn speed when you're, turning, whipping shitties in the middle of the world that you're at. These require 10 dried wood braidwood planks and dried braidwood boards, so 20 total. Now, most people would assume, okay, journeyman level wood, these are the best wheels you can get. Obviously, higher rarity is better. Au contraire, mon frere. If you come over here and you look at tin reinforced caravan wheels, where you're using tin, which is a level 10 and you combine that with Weeping Willow, which is a level 10, you get up to 74 to 81 general speed rating, which is higher than the 73 to 89, ever so slightly. But what this means is that you don't necessarily need braidwood to have the fastest general speed rating if you're traversing around in the world. Now, obviously, the braidwood on roads is going to run faster than these tin reinforced wheels. We can see that clearly. But if you're doing specific runs where you're not really on roads or the roads don't exist like they do in the desert, which also doesn't exist coincidentally.
I made a whole video showing this segment of the desert in phase 1. I flew around this and I made a bet with Steven and said, you know what, if the desert exists, I'll cut my beard off. And guess what? I flew around this section and I was like, yeah, do you know what? The desert exists. I'll shave my beard off.
You may want to go with tin reinforced caravans. They're cheaper to acquire. And this creates a cost sink of resources that would potentially be obsolete in other games. This level 10 stuff now has value in a caravan system where caravans get destroyed. As caravans get destroyed, people are going to want to make new wheels. And because of that, these sorts of things have value. This is just an example, of course. There are plenty of examples. I just wanted to show one for you guys that I was looking at this last week. But just because you have a higher level rating doesn't mean that that's always the way to go. If we go and we look at food, this is something that our cook was showing me. This is a higher end level food. This is a level 20 food. It's called spaghetti. It gives you 55 fizz power and 183 max health at common. It is really good. It requires tomato sauce, noodles, and butter in order to make. And if we click in here, you see that to make the tomato sauce, we need tomato, mirepoix, and Alin spice. If we go in farther into the mirepoix, It sees just like any other mirepoix. It's onion, celery, and carrot. If you're a cook, you know. If you don't know what mirepoix is, guys, what are you doing with your life? Let's figure it out, okay? I'm just kidding, of course. But when you're leveling up, when you're making your onions, you need braidwood mulch. And so this is another resource sink for lower level braidwood. You see, as we progress into the game, braidwood is valuable, but as we upgrade our weapons, only the higher level material will be valuable, right? Like when we upgrade our bows or our wands, we're going to eventually move on from rare to heroic to epic to legendary to a point to where we're going to wipe out this other lower level stuff. But that doesn't mean that lower level braidwood doesn't have value here. It means that we can potentially use the lower level stuff to make something like this, a food that would buff your character by quite a bit. And when you die, obviously you have to equip another food. And so this is another resource sink of lower level common or just lower level resources that otherwise wouldn't really exist in other games. And so this is the type of testing we're doing. My entire point that I'm trying to make to you here, guys, the entire point that I'm trying to show to you is we're looking at these resource sinks. I'm sure that they have data in the background showing how much oak, how much ash, how much weeping willow, and how much braidwood is being farmed. And they want to see how much is being collected out in the world and then how much is being used on other things. I'm sure they have data here that's showing where the congestion is, because a good economy should have a point to where these things still have value somewhere. Or is everything supposed to be equal in value? No, of course not. But ash should have value. Oak should have value still later on. And if you go and you look at like the armor for caravans as an example, the lower level trees do have value in that department. So if you wanted to put armor on your caravan to make it a little bit more beefy, you could use lower level wood for that. Once again, it is a system where caravans can be destroyed, and that will constantly be a resource that is needed in that department. And so this is what we're testing. We're testing all of these resources through these recipes through time, and we're seeing what is being used and what is being backlogged. And we're doing this across 3 different servers. We're doing it on the EU server, we're doing it on Vira, which is the more PvP heavy server, and we're doing it on Lineth, which is a lot more of the cooperative and friendly server. And you have to keep in mind, when this game goes live, there are going to be there's going to be multiple servers on a much larger scale. And having the tools and having the data of what this stuff looks like from a PvP happy server to a more friendly server is really important for dialing things in to making things fun for each individual server to kind of identify these things. Also, we're in a very unique situation to where we don't have the entire world coming online. We don't have 18 biomes right now. We have one full biome, which is the Riverlands, up to level 25, and they're working on finishing the desert biome. And so we only have so many nodes, and people are choosing which journeyman stations they want to level up first. And so we're seeing in real time through 3 different servers right now, which stations are going to journeyman, which progressions are happening first, where all that gold is coming from, and all this kind of coincides to show that the more time we spend in here, which we're going to have months doing this, we're going to have months of data for Intrepid to be able to utilize for their servers to see which of these resources is being used and which is just collecting dust in people's inventories. And so they can then go in and tweak recipes. They can go in and make some adjustments and say, hey, we don't have a proper resource sink for, rubies, for instance. Maybe we change a recipe that requires ruby powder in order to make a certain thing. And they can make adjustments now because we can really easily identify in a vacuum when resources are getting spent, because we're seeing when journeyman stations are coming online and what people are doing. We don't have to tell. It's not crazy like all of a sudden 10 different journeyman stations are coming up all at the same time. We're going to have 1 or 2 coming up in order to test. And so it's isolated data, and isolated data when you're studying economics is almost impossible to get. And they're getting that. They're getting it as isolated of data as they're ever going to get. As they expand into the tropics, as they expand into the desert, and as they expand into other areas, this type of isolated data won't exist anymore. They're not going to see the initial player preferences in a way that they can currently see now. And so this stuff is really cool. Maybe not for you if you made it this far. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. That's fine. But we get to see what resources are really being used just by existing in the world, by murdering people, by working together with people, by doing everything that you would normally do in Ashes of Creation. They're getting plenty of data to figure out what they're going to do with this game when it goes live. And so that is my econ video, my introductory one. If you guys liked it, let me know in the comment section. There is a lot of crafting and econ stuff that they're doing quite well, in my opinion. And obviously, you know, there will be some tweaks that need to be made and everything, but this is a huge step up from the last few MMORPGs I played in the past. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.